Oh, hi, how are you? Well, welcome to another session of Wing Chun Kun. Some bad news. Bruce Lee's former mansion has been demolished. It took place late September. It used to be a very special neighborhood. It's This house is situated in Kowloon, which is a place for like very rich neighborhood. The only neighborhood in Kowloon, Hong Kong, where you have like a house with a fence outside and a driveway, a front yard with grass. Bruce Lee had a little garden in the front yard. And then you got like a two-story house and then a backyard. Very Western looking, and only rich people could afford that. I actually lived quite close to it. I live in Kowloon, which is like not more than half an hour walk from where that is. In fact, I went to a kindergarten school nearby in Kowloon at the time. And I've been to some of these houses back when I was a kid. Not his house, obviously, but a house nearby because I knew a friend of a friend of a friend who used to work as a maid in one of these houses. And the owners in the summertime had gone back to their country. So the house was left empty, and the maid one day brought us there to clean the place. And I just tagged along, and it was amazing. Back in the 70s when you saw a house that big, with beautifully, with the kitchen and then this two-story house. You just don't see that in Hong Kong. And I was crazy because I saw all these toys that the kid had, and I played with all the toys that day when I was there. So these houses are very hard to come by, and because it's a very special area, the land in that area became very valuable, and therefore a lot of people had sold these houses to make money. Instead of living in there, they sold these houses to businesses that want to buy it, because it's a very secluded area of town. There's not a whole lot of shopping malls or businesses around that area. So later on, it grew and it became more of a educational places like kindergartens and elementary school, privately owned kindergartens. And then another kind of business that arose that bought these houses. There are some kind of Buddhist organizations, and as well as love motels. In Asia, it's very common because people live in a very, very small apartment with like 3 generations. So when they want to do anything with each other, like husbands and wives or girlfriends or whatever, they would rent a motel and then do their thing there instead of at home, because there's just too many people at home. So that's a very common thing. So it's become now, for many years now, there's mostly schools and love motels and Buddhist organizations. There are very few people left in that area as a actual residence. So in 1974, I think somebody had bought this Bruce Lee mansion, and it's became a love hotel ever since. It was bought by a man named Yu Pan Lin back in 1974, not long after the death of Bruce Lee, for not a whole lot of money at that time, about $1 million Hong Kong dollars. And what happened is in in the 70s, in the 80s, there was not a whole lot of talk about Bruce Lee. And then lately in the 2000s, there's kind of like a revival of Bruce Lee and Wing Chun and all that. So in 2008, the owner of the property was going to sell it to raise money for the Sichuan flood victims. But people had urged him not to sell it because it's Bruce Lee's house. You should maybe make it into a Bruce Lee museum, which what he tried to do. The guy was quite a philanthropist. He later on in his life, he lived until 2015. He was a real big real estate tycoon, and he owned a hotel where he made profitable money. And he passed away in 2015, and he gave all his money, billions of dollars, to charity. And he has once said that his one of the longevity of his life in his older years was charity work, and he made that to become his lifelong goal near the end of his life, to actually give back to the community. This guy, he started at a very humble beginning. He came from Shanghai, and he worked as a toilet cleaner, and he worked his way up the ranks into real estate, and he became very successful. And he gave billions of dollars into this charity of his, now in a trust, to help people. And now that he's passed away, his trust fund had followed his will, and they go ahead to make the Bruce Lee former residence into some kind of study school for kindergarten and elementary school, to learn mostly Mandarin and Chinese music. The reason why the school has to be torn down was the structural problem. It's been neglected for many years, since 2008, and it's been left vacant, and the house has become such disrepair that it was no longer viable to keep the structure in place. He had a lot of competition at the time for architectural school to make it into a museum, and hundreds of applications were submitted. Bruce Lee's daughter was one of the judges to determine which application was good, to what type of architecture and style they were going to turn it into a museum for Bruce Lee. And one of the last concepts were to make it into a big museum with like fully restoring the house with a cinema and several basement levels of all kinds of things that would honor Bruce Lee. However, the city and the proposal never came to an agreement, because it violated a lot of zoning laws within the neighborhood. They weren't allowed to make a basement with 3 levels or stuff like that, and it just didn't work out. And after he died, 2015, they finally came to agreement where they're just going to scrap the whole thing and make it into a Mandarin and music, a Chinese Mandarin and Chinese music school. And then that is why in late September that it was demolished, and now they're going to rebuild it. It's going to take about a year to rebuild it into a school. So unfortunately, the building no longer stands, and the only thing was saved was a couple of tiles and a couple of window frames. And long live Bruce Lee, I guess. Thank you for watching for this video, and have a nice day. Thanks. Bye.